Okay, good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I have a very easy job for this session because not only my guest needs no introduction, he's also been a fairly regular speaker at our conclave. So let's start first by welcoming our speaker for the session, Mr. Arun Shourie. Thank you very much, Mr. Shourie, for being a part of the session. You know, the topic of this session is the dead hand of the state. This is the 13th edition of India Today Conclave, but the topic is perhaps as old as India's independence. Even if there was an India Today Conclave in 1947, it would have probably started, or it would have definitely had a session on the hand of the state, because this is a topic that is being debated in Indian political economy since the time Jawaharlal Nehru was the Prime Minister. And in some way, this shows the remarkable patience we as Indians have to keep debating a topic almost endlessly without resolving it. Is the hand of the state dead or alive? Does it come alive once in a while and then dies? Is it invisible? Is it visible, as Adam Smith would have questioned? And our speaker for the session, Mr. Arun Shourie, once had a very beautiful term to describe our patience for debating a topic almost endlessly without finding a resolution. His term was paralysis by analysis. Sir, I don't know whether you remember. He said Indians are very good at paralyzing things by analyzing. Mr. Shourie, among many distinctions that he has, one distinction that he has is he is India's first and only Minister for Privatization. And one of the things I'll request him to tell us, that does he fear that his distinction will get lost in the next government, or do we believe that he will always remain India's first and only Minister for Privatization? Which means, will the next government do anything to privatize? As he earned the distinction of being India's first and only privatization minister, by default he earned another distinction. As he keeps saying once in a while, he's one of those very rare Indians, and perhaps the only person in this room right now, who has the certificate of honesty issued by CBI. He has had several CBI investigations, all of them yielded nothing. Unfortunately, I think he knows this, that some of his former junior colleagues in the ministry still are facing the wrath of the dead or sometimes getting alive hand of state. And I would like to know from him, and I think everybody of you would like to know what he thinks about CBI as the hand of the state. Mr. Shourie, actually, for everything that he has done, he's been in private sector, he's been in government, he's been a journalist. We journalists take extreme pride in calling him one of our tribe, but I often wonder of late whether this is an honor that is getting a little too burdensome for him to carry. But the point is that there is no person in India, perhaps in the world, who has felt, dealt, and seen the hand of the state the way Mr. Shourie has. He has seen it inside out, and therefore, that makes this session, despite the topic being as old as India's independence, truly unique and enriching. And if I know a little bit about what he's going to tell us now, you are in for a surprise, because his latest interpretation of what the hand of state really is going to leave you with surprise and delight in equal measure. So I won't take any more time, ladies and gentlemen. The lone and only Mr. Shourie, sir.
My dear friend Rohit and my dear friends, Sir Rohit said just now about, firstly, whether the new government, whichever it is, will privatize companies. That whichever government comes into India has two illusions. One illusion is that they can turn around public sector enterprises. And the second illusion is that they can improve relations with Pakistan. So it takes 3 years for them to realize that they can't do it, but by then maybe it is easy to improve relations with Pakistan, but they do not, it's too late to privatize. So that can't happen. Sir, as for the CBI, yes, true. Okay, I have already got 2 certificates of honesty from the CBI because of this government. But और शायद अगर सिन्हा साहब की इनायत होगी तो तीसरा सर्टिफिकेट भी आने वाला है, क्योंकि उन्होंने अभी हिंदुस्तान जिंक पर इंक्वायरी शुरू कर रखी है, हमें पेपर से पता लगता है. वैसे, you see, to be honest, even to be a suspect in the eyes of the CBI is a distinction. Not many people are a suspect. आप नहीं समझते कि भी distinction है? That shows that you are not from Punjab, as some of us are. क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ एक बार शेरनी का रेप हुआ. उन दिनों में पंजाब में जंगल होते थे, तो शेरनी का रेप हुआ. शेर बड़ा गुस्से में आ गया. उसे कहा सारे इधर एनिमल्स आओ, लाइन में खड़े हो, कि जिसने किया है मैं उसको खत्म कर दूंगा, इस आपके सामने चबाकर खा जाऊंगा. तो ये सारे बेचारे ऊंच दबाकर खड़े हो गए लाइन में, और बाकी जंगल से सारे लोग आ रहे हैं. शेर गुर्रा रहा है, और एक चूहा वो बड़ी शान से चल रहा है, दूसरे एनिमल को घरे भाई हौली चल, शोर न मचा, सर नीचे रख, तेन पता नहीं शेर अग लगी हुई है. डोंट यू नो द शेर इज ऑन फायर? ही सेड ओए रहन दे, तेनू नहीं पता शेरनी दा रेप होया है, अज साडे ते भी शक है. So we should treat Mr. Ranjit Sinha as the friend that you will treat him to be, and in this matter. Sir, as far as the state is concerned, I think there are 2-3 points to be made. One, that it is the less healthy part of our society. The society of India is much more resilient than the state. And therefore, the theme of reform since 1991 was to reduce the role of the state in our lives. And this is vindicated in every way that you see. If you see, if you compare periods before 91 and after 91, there's a secular difference between the rates of growth, because the state has been less important now than it was then. If you see not just the periods, if you see sectors, those sectors which escaped the eye of the state did so well, like IT. And those which remained in the eye of the state just could not get ahead, for instance, education. And every attempt by the state to intervene led to the type of nonsense that you are seeing today in the admission of these poor little toddlers in the best schools in Delhi. Because it's a dead state. Third, if you don't look at sectors, if you look within a sector, take manufacturing as a whole, it has improved. But if you take defense manufacturing, it has not improved, because the state continues to intervene in that. Same thing if you look at firms which were disinvested. Mr. Anil Agarwal has just come. But if you see Balco or Hindustan Zinc or Paradeep Phosphate, those which were privatized, how well they have done, and what Air India is, which could not be privatized because of corporate rivalries at that time. In the same way, if you see in every single sector where the state is, except for a few islands like ISRO, you see the same feature of being dead, like our border roads organization or education, or I'm afraid you will see tomorrow about our banks, that 7 banks today are in an endangered list. So on that fact, that the record speaks for itself, that the government or the state should not be in these activities, on the record on that is absolutely clear. But what has happened in the last few years, the last 10 years, or maybe, yes, I think certainly in the last few years, is that this process has been reversed. Even as the capacity of the state to perform its functions was becoming weaker and weaker, the state appropriated more and more functions under this so-called inclusive growth, which is just a phrase for dressing up, throwing money out of the window. And you see this, that in the functioning of the public distribution system, in what we know about this rural employment scheme, in what we know about subsidies. All these increased at the time when the capacity of the state to deliver services became less and less. So what did the state do? It went in for nominalism. And the state doesn't mean just government, but you say, everything is now seen only by expenditure. We have spent so much on employment, we have spent so much on education, but never on outcomes. And this disease has infected others also, for instance, the courts. If you see the Supreme Court judgments on education, no, education, because of our tradition, our religion, profiteering should not be allowed. This is the word they have used again and again, as Devesh Kapoor has shown in many of his writings, profiteering nahi allow karenge. मैं आपको example देता हूँ. You know, we are supposed to be an IT superpower. Do you know how many PhDs we give, Arun, for IT in a year? 60 to 70. But the Rayalaseema University in Andhra, Rayalaseema University, you may not have heard of it, but it's a great opportunity. In 2 years, it gave 2,600 PhDs. The 23 universities, half of which were set up under this dynamic chief minister about which everybody in the media wrote, why is this Rajshekhar Reddy? These 23 universities admitted 38,000 PhD candidates and gave 13,000 PhDs in 5 years. We are able to give only 60 in the place where we are supposed to be a superpower. Magar yahan khuli chutti hai. Now, isn't this profiteering? Don't you see it? Don't the courts see it? But nobody intervenes. Those who are setting up such shops are the ones who prevent reform by saying, "Bhai, Ma Saraswati ko mat becho." So the standing committee in parliament will block education reform. So the point is, we go in for nominalism and are quite satisfied with this. The second is, we go in for denial. I'll again give you this PISA survey. As you know, it is the Program for International Student Assessment by the OECD. What happened in this survey, Rohit? In 74 countries were surveyed. We came 73rd. Shanghai, the schools of Shanghai came number 1 in the world. And what was our reaction? We went off the survey. Singapore, by contrast, looks for international surveys in which to participate. And wherever they see that we are deficient on these criteria, they try to make up in that. If you go to the BBC News portal for 2012, when the survey came out, just see the intense debate within the United Kingdom, why our schools our rank is stagnant and China has zoomed up. So what we should do? But we went into, after nominalism, into denial. The third thing that was done when the state's role was being reduced was, that which is liberalized must be regulated. Do you know, with such a well-informed audience, do you know how many regulators there are in the education sector? There are 13 regulators. In the economics, in the economy, there are 36 regulators. In the financial sector alone, there are 9 regulators. And you can see what is happening. And because the type of persons who are put there, because the ways of working remain the same, the types of persons remain the same, nothing changes. And fourth, while some regulators are doing very good work, you will be absolutely shocked to learn the condition of many of these regulations. In medical education, again, because of some paper of Devesh Kapoor, I requested Sandeep Bamzai and others to help me see what is happening, what is the charges of corruption regarding these. Chairman of Medical Council, arrested for and now reinstated. He is an all-party icon for corruption. National Council for Teachers Education, charges of corruption against the chairman established. What has been done? He has been repatriated to his university. अरे वहाँ नहीं वो कुछ करेगा? All India Council for Technical Education, charge sheet for corruption filed against the chairman. Council for Architecture, which you did not know exists, charge sheet filed against the president for flouting norms to approve an architecture college run by his wife. Dental Council, a member of the council has filed various charges. But the most interesting thing is All India Nursing Council, another council you did not think exists. It's a regulator. In that particular case, a compounder of the Nursing Council, देखिए आप कौन से गलत professions में पड़े हुए हैं. A compounder of the Nursing Council was caught taking a 5 lakh rupee bribe in cash from a college that had to be recognized. When the CBI raided various premises, they found that he had assets of 200 crores. अग्रवाल साहब ऐसे आदमी को लेना चाहिए. देखिए कैसे बिजनेस प्रॉस्पर करेगी. वो हवा में से पैसे लाते हैं. Now, two factors why this persists. One is the homogenization of the political class. Every politician will come and say how different he is from the others, how his party is different from the others. But actually speaking, they are the same. And election after election shows us, हमारे मुल्ला साहब थे, उनका एक कपलेट था कि दिल कैदी का बहलाने को दरबान बदलते जाते हैं. कैदी बेचारा अंदर ही है, वो आगे दरबान बदलते. So the condition remains the same because of the homogenization. You see this in 2G. No political party brought out things. In coal, nothing. It's only the media and a few judges and the CAG, which is a sort of a satellite on its own. They brought out things. Then everybody ran with it. Because everybody understands the compulsion of the other fellow and the opportunity he's availing of. The second problem that is happening is that we do not realize, in a sense, this is what Rohit was alluding to, when we talk of the state and reducing its role, what the Marxists used to say is the reification of the state. We make it an entity in itself divorced from us. But we are the state. If there are NPAs in the banks, who has got these? People like us. If there are Ponzi schemes, the latest Ponzi scheme has turned out that 45,000 crores of small investors' money somebody has walked away with. But people like us have done it. Using the state to capture scarce resources, regulatory bodies, substandard universities, corruption in general. After all, no bribe has been received before it has been given. So the state is us, and that is why the problem that we are facing, sir, is today beyond individuals. But all our hopes have come to rest on one individual. It is beyond what is, this word we use, it is systemic. It is also a phrase actually to switch off thinking and absolve ourselves of the responsibility. कि system का गलती है, मेरी तो नहीं है. This symbiosis of the state and people like us who are deforming the state is best personified by this pepper spray MP. ये शेखर गुप्ता pointed out कि हम कहते हैं politician ये कर रहा है, politicians ने क्या कर दिया. Shekhar Gupta pointed out correctly. Do you know who this pepper spray MP is? Do you know his NPAs? Unreturned loans from the banks? How much are they? 35,000 crores. So is he a part of the state? Or is he a part of us? Or is it all one? For this reason, there are several remedies, and there's not much time, but I'll just rush through these. First is, please continue to reduce the role of the state in this way. For instance, the anti-employment labor laws. because you will not be able to change things from the center. Have one enabling change so that the states can do it, some states will do it, and then that will lead to greater competition and others will get courage to do it. In the Apprenticeship Act, to pick up such acts, few will know that there is an Apprenticeship Act of 1961. In India, where our whole tradition was of imparting skills from a guru to a shishya, we have only 3 lakh apprentices. China has how many? 20 million, 200 lakh. We have 3 lakh. If Germany had the same population as us and the same ratio as German apprentices to German population, India would have 140 lakh. In this tiny, by population, this tiny, state of Queensland, in tiny Australia by population, 25,000 employers have apprentices. In all of India, only 25,000 employers engage apprentices. Why? In spite of our tradition, why? Because of the Apprentices Act. If you had apprentices under the Act, you would be in jail. So Manish Agarwal and others have shown how such acts can be identified and they can just be done away with, and you will unleash the creative power of India. Third, please respect the sanctity of the state and its institutions. The private sector today should see that by suborning the Ministry of Telecom, by trying to derail things in coal for my immediate interest, what harm they have done to the private sector itself. Mr. Agarwal will tell us, he has written articles on this matter, of how India's power could be unleashed if we were not putting obstacles for each other in this way. Third is, please codify best practices in India and propagate them. Ranade, one of our distinguished economists, was just telling me, see, contract labor. What was happening was that the firms could not employ full-time labor because of our labor laws. So they would hire a contractor, he would employ, and I will pay the contractor. But the contractor will not pay the workers, so disputes will arise. So he said that in Maharashtra, the government has just done a simple thing, that the payment is made directly into the bank account of the contract labor. Good practice. In under trials, even though that reminds me of my many years past when we had done this series, and that series had resulted in the freeing of 40,000 under trials. But under trial problem still continues. Under trials are to be brought to the court. They can't be brought to the court. They are serving as under trials in jail for periods longer than they would serve if they were convicted of the crime with which they are charged. In the series we had done, there was a lady who had been in jail for 14 years. Another lady for 6 years for petty theft. And she had gone mad in the jail and her file had been lost. Nobody knew what to do with it. But often they cannot be brought to the court because there are no policemen to take them to the court. Why? Because they are on Chief Minister's duties. So the Maharashtra government, again Rana told me, what has it done? It has just allowed video conferences and video trials to go on for under trials. Simple solution. So codify these. Fourth, please change the nature of discourse in India. One of the best things that under Arun's leadership India Today does is that one page of telling us about good work being done in India. We must be the champions of successes. We must be the ambassadors of successes. Look for in the morning newspaper of somebody doing good work and propagate that to every friend of yours. Fifth, there is one good thing that is happening because of these scandals, and that is that at long last, because of court interventions and because of other things, rational procedures are coming about for the allocation of scarce resources. In mining, probably this will happen. And certainly, as you have seen in the 3G auction this time of spectrum. So again, we should codify these and ensure that these things can proceed further. So wherever the state is, its procedures its procedures are improved precisely because of the problems that have occurred in the recent past. It's not going to be easy. Many of these things will require very hard decisions. I mentioned to you, for instance, about these non-performing loans. Uday Kotak has estimated that these now exceed 2,50,000 crores. And in fact, some of the banks are so exposed, their exposure to some of these firms is so great that if they did not do this fictitious rollover, they would themselves collapse. So what will you do? Will you allow the banks to come down below 51%? Will you again throw in taxpayers' money, as Chidambaram has been doing, into the banks, 5,000 crores, 10,000 crores, which does nothing to change the character of the bank? Will you let some firms collapse? If you give relief to the banks, people will say, oh, this is being done to help some corporate or the other. So very difficult decisions, and the only way these things can carry through, you can carry these through, is if whoever is the Prime Minister chooses such persons whose reputation is irreproachable, who will bring about policies for the sectors as a whole and make sure that it is not differentially tilted towards this corporate house or that corporate house. Sixth, please see through the rhetoric of the enemies of change. In India, we become prisoners of words, especially because of the condition of the media today, in the evening discussions and so on. Just a phrase is taken up. जैसे मैंने आपको कहा, education reform has been stopped just by this phrase कि माँ सरस्वती को मत बेचो. So see through that and be the champion. These are the enemies of change. India is able to adapt and to change and to take advantage of it, but we must help it along. Seventh, get off denial, as I mentioned to you in the case of the education sector. Next, give choice. Reduce the role of the state. And I give you just one example that Shyam Saran told me about. Indian Oil Corporation, sir, you know, everybody knows that because kerosene is subsidized, it is used for adulterating diesel. Everybody knows this. It's done from the very top right to the bottom. In Alwar district, in one part, the IOC did an experiment. They would not give you kerosene at the subsidized price. What they did was, you are the BPL family, you are entitled to this much kerosene, okay, we'll give you that much kerosene, not give you the kerosene, we will give you that subsidy in your bank account. Now you go and buy kerosene in the market. Do you know by how kerosene offtake in that part of Alwar district went down? 40%. That means even at that BPL level, 40% of the kerosene was being used for adulteration in diesel. So you give him a choice. Similarly, in education, every survey, ASAR survey, done by associates of Pratham, shows three things. Private schools provide better education. They provide education at 1/3 the cost of government schools. Third, that even the poorest households even in rural areas say we want our children to go into private schools. So why don't you give a voucher? Okay, government cost is 11,500. I give you a voucher for 11,500. Go and choose the school. This will put some pressure for improvement of government schools. This will also mean that the better schools get more students. So give that choice, rather than sitting accreditation and so on, in which all this corruption takes place. Finally, and just 2 points after that. One is, in the case, all allocations must be made must be related not to input norms, how much expenditure, how much infrastructure you have, but to outcomes. Are you taking on my improved policies? You draw policies. You want We have 7 lakh headmasters in our schools and not one leadership training institute for our headmasters. So you say the state government which institutes this, we will give it more money. The school whose children perform better, we will give it greater subsidies. From states to schools, all allocations should be tailored to performance and outcomes rather than to inputs. Finally, you and I can do something, and that is, as I mentioned last year also, please take up one institution and scrutinize its behavior and its conduct. Whether it's Parliament Research Service has done such a good job, we should do that for courts and their judgments. But all this, we can go on with this list, but all this is really how to replace this notion of a pervasive state, all-knowing state, with other things and tweak the functions of the state itself. But as I mentioned to you, the state cannot be improved if we do not change. And for that reason, 2 things are necessary, and I'll finish with that. One is to reverse the perverse norms which have come about in this society. We are not able now to draw a line. डेथ पेनल्टी नहीं होनी चाहिए, टेररिस्ट के लिए नहीं होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि जी इसके लिए नहीं है. Every criminal gets to be an under trial and therefore has all human rights. Similarly, that mediocrity has become the norm because of politicians. Caste is class in India, therefore caste. Intimidation has become argument, assault has become proof. These norms must be reversed. And we must put excellence at the top. There is no place in this world for a second-rate country, and there should be no place for a person who puts in second-rate effort in a country. And finally, we must change our own conduct, because it is not that the politician is doing something and we are not. In a sense, the politician is just us writ large. And unless we change our own conduct in ways that I mentioned to you, there is no shuffling of boxes on organization charts, no bringing in of changing prime ministers and governments, which will change the nature of the state in India. That is what is the principal achievement of the Chinese. They have changed the nature of the Chinese state, and we must change the nature of the Indian state. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
I think so we may have no scope for questions left because we are running out. So I'll just maybe request if there are 1 or maximum 2 questions. On the audience, you could raise your hand and introduce yourself. Do I see something? So one thing I wanted to ask before somebody comes is that everything that you said, and you have been part of government scene, what is it for the change to really happen? Is clarity lacking or courage lacking? Because we had the dream team running the country for 10 years. So supposedly they had all the clarity in the word that was needed. So is it the clarity or is it the courage?
In what sense was it a dream team? मैंने तो उस समय भी कहा था, it is a team in your dreams. In a sense that these fellows have done nothing. Circumstances forced something on them, and so actually circumstances, the person who recognized those circumstances was Mr. Narasimha Rao. And you see the evidence of that. Dr. Saab कहते हैं कि he is the father of reforms. सब कहते हैं, और वो औरों को कहने देते हैं कि I am the father of reforms. But actually speaking, if you see, Narasimha Rao got entangled in the JMM bribery case in 1993. After that, you show me the reforms. 91, 93 से हुई, उसके बाद कुछ नहीं हुआ. Dr. Saab फिर फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर थे. सर, इनका कोर कॉम्पिटेंस है, अगर कोई चीज गलत हो तो ब्लेम रोहित का, अगर कोई चीज ठीक चले तो मैंने किया. That is their core competence. So it is not, they were completely clear. The clear was to shift the blame to others, appropriate the credit. जो पहले एनडीए टाइप का, एनडीए यूपीए में मैं नहीं जाना चाहता, मगर जो पॉलिसीज ऑफ लिबरलाइजेशन का इफेक्ट था, उससे जो ग्रोथ ऊपर हो रही थी, वो पहले 3-4 साल होती रही, उसके लिए ये क्रेडिट लेने कहते हैं। अब जैसे इकोनॉमी छोड़ रही है तो कहते हैं जी वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस हो गया। परसों 2008 में तो था नहीं, दैट इज डीकपल्ड। ये ड्रीम टीम कह रही थी डीकपलिंग, वर्ल्ड थिंग्स वोंट अफेक्ट अस। So I don't think it is this. They have the wrong sort of clarity, and of course there is no courage at all. And the courage has been shown by people who we would not regard as particularly demonstrative in their courage, and that is Narasimha Rao and Bajpayee. So we should have that quiet courage to do the right thing. Thank you.
Session a little more interactive, but before we pose that question for our audience, once again, I'd like to take you through this voting meter. To switch it on, once again, there's a button right, top right, which says in the middle, on. Press that alongside bottom right function. Press both of them together, and you're going to have this little electronic voting meter on. So do we have that? Have you switched on our voting meters? Once again, let me take you through this. What you have to do is, right on top, there are 4 buttons if you see. Now, in those 4 buttons, there's a button called on. Press that alongside function, which is right at the bottom left. Press those together, and you have this little voting machine on. Are we good? Great. So now, we're going to put out a question. Before we put that question out, you'll have options here. So you have A, B, C, D. Whichever option you want to exercise, you want to go with, press that, but do not forget to press OK, which is right on top on the right-hand side. Once again, let me take you through this. Press it on with on right on top, along with function, press both of them together. You have your electronic voting machine on. And then you have all these options here which says A, B, C, D, E. Exercise your option, press whichever one you want to go with, and then do not forget to press OK. Nobody would know what you voted for. Now let me quickly take you through the question we are posing for this particular session. The question is, should the government get out of business? And the options you have are 2, which is A and B. So if your voting meters are on, do exercise that option, A or B. That's your question. Should the government get out of business? And you have 2 options right there, A and B.
So as you answer this question, Mr. Shourie just now told me he's reminded of Rajya Sabha polling done like this. So you have a reputation to beat. I mean, let's do better than Rajya Sabha, Preeti.
For 15 years, they have not mastered this.
Well, we're going to get 60 seconds, and we're going to tabulate the results and put it right out there, and we'll have an answer. So those of you who still haven't exercised this, once again, let me take you through this. It's quite easy. Right up there, you have on, you have function, press both of them together, your machines are on, exercise your option, A or B. Do not forget to press OK, because only then will your vote register. And another 20 seconds, we should have our results tabulated, and you will get the results. All right, can we have the results for the question? There you have it. Yes,
So here we had a
the government should get out of business. An overwhelming response there.
Okay.
Mr. Shourie, you would want to say something about that? We're voting in less than a month, we're going into elections, and the August House there. In less than a month, sir, we are going to elections, and already an overwhelming response which clearly suggests that the government should get out of business.
I guess your message.
But no political party will say that. They are so timid, you see.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shourie. Thank you. I've asked you to please stay on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Mr. Shourie there. Mr. Shourie, I'd request you to stay on stage, sir. Mr. Shourie, sir, I'd request you to stay on stage. Just a small token of our appreciation. For that, I'd like to call upon stage His Excellency François Richer. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please put our hands together for Mr. Arun Shourie? Thank you, Mr. Shourie. Thank you.